Greetings, I'm Andrew Bush, and I want to just follow up on some further thoughts on peace and violence. This is drawn from reading in your recommended reading in the Houston Woods book, Invitation to Peace Studies, Chapter 2, which I encourage you to read, but since it was recommended reading, I'm doing this extra lecture that I hope will be helpful to you. Studying peace is also studying violence. These are like two sides of the same coin. And I want to introduce several important terms to you, and these are direct violence and indirect violence, and negative peace and positive peace. Let's first talk about direct violence. Direct violence is, as it sounds, it's overt, human-initiated physical harm. This includes war, tribal violence, rape in warfare, terrorist bombings, etc. It can include intentional starvation of a people and more. But it's this intentional physical harm against a people. Negative peace is the cessation, the ending of direct violence, but without the formation of a deeper peace and reconciliation between people being achieved. It's as if you have these two people at war with each other, and the goal is to stop that violence, and when that violence is stopped, but without other structures to sustain peace or relationships of harmony between the peoples, what you have is negative peace. Peace that there's no warfare, but there's also no relationship between peoples. We could say that the occupation of Palestine by Israel is a form of direct violence because many Palestinians are killed in this by the Israeli Defense Forces. People are refused access to hospitals, to education, to chances to work, to sustain their families. And this is a form of direct harm against a people. The other type of violence and peace that's important is indirect violence and positive peace. What's indirect violence? Indirect violence has two types: structural or institutional violence. And this is violence caused by inequitable customs, laws, and systems that oppress a people. For example, in South Africa under apartheid, there were laws that forbade people of color from living in certain areas, from getting certain jobs, from even walking down certain streets. And this type of laws, structural laws, is a type of violence against a people. We've seen this for a long time in the United States, where people of color have been forbidden to live in certain neighborhoods. They have been refused service in certain institutions. The other type of indirect violence is cultural violence, and this is a little bit more subtle, but still is harmful. And this includes stories, family traditions, songs, art that demean a people and that justify direct violence. We can think of jokes people make, subtle jokes people make about other people. And these may sound cute or funny, but they're a form of violence against other people. Cultural violence can be transmitted through exclusion of information as well as, inclusion, as I say, in art forms, etc. And we think in classrooms, if the narrative of a people is excluded, that's a form of violence against that people because they're being indirectly dehumanized by the failure to tell their story. What is the relationship between direct and indirect violence? If we think of an iceberg, we can think of direct violence as what you see above the water. And indirect violence, the structural and cultural violence, is what is below the sea level. And there's a huge amount of the iceberg underwater, and these are the attitudes and the beliefs and the habits and the structural customs of a society that support direct violence. Okay, let me talk about positive peace. We spoke about negative peace, which is peace that's with the absence of war, but without structures that sustain peace in between peoples. Positive peace seeks to correct structural and cultural violence. So positive peace seeks right relationships and harmonious associations that are a response, as I say, to cultural violence. Positive peace is often criticized as being too broad, wanting to transform an entire society, while many people who are pursuing peace feel the great priority is negative peace. We just have to stop the violence against a people, the direct physical harm against a people. And so they feel positive peace is a great idea, but it takes too long, it's too expensive, and the efforts and resources should be directed towards stopping immediate physical violence against a people. Really, when we think of positive peace, it's very close to what Jesus taught about the kingdom of God, which included the transformation of society by the values of God. Negative peace gives space for positive peace to flourish, and positive peace lays the groundwork for the possibility of negative peace. Let me say that again. What's the relationship between negative and positive peace? Negative peace, the cessation of violence, the ending of violence, gives some breathing room for positive peace to develop, for relationships of harmony to develop, for institutions in society to be built which will sustain positive relationships. Negative peace gives space for positive peace to flourish. The flip side of this is positive peace lays the groundwork for the possibility of negative peace. In other words, building a positive peace, building institutional structures and relationships which sustain peace, drains the swamp for the justification of war. And so these kinds of peace are very important. There's one other kind of peace that I think we need to mention just as we close, and that is personal peace, personal inner peace. The pursuit of interpersonal peace has been downplayed in peace studies because it has seemed to be of less importance than broader social peace, the cessation of war, the building of in-depth peace in a society. But the supporters of the importance of personal peace argue that global peace grows out of individual peace. And you can't make peace if you don't know peace. And so that's one argument for the importance of personal peace. We should also note that personal peace is something that religions stress, and and the majority of the peoples in the world draw strength every day for their life from their religious context. And so peace is important to people, internal peace. Jesus said, "My peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." Peace was important to Jesus to impart to people in the world. There's another element that argues for the rise of, for the importance of personal peace, and that's the rise globally of suicide. Suicide is a type of direct violence against the self. And the rise of suicide emphasizes the need for more understanding and institutions that support personal peace. Well, in closing, let me just ask you a question. If you reflect on your own life, if you just want to be honest with yourself, and I'm not asking you to post this, if you reflect on your own life, how have you participated in cultural violence towards a people or a community? Can you think of jokes you've made with your friends that have been basically an ethnic slur or racial slur against another people? We should be honest with ourselves and look at ourselves. Can you draw a link between cultural violence and direct violence in your context? Can you see that happening? Are you seeing a people demeaned in art forms, in movies, and on television that provides a justification for direct violence against them? There's another important type of cultural violence, and that's in the realm of theology. And when Christians build theologies that demean Palestinians, that lays a groundwork for direct violence against Palestinian people. When Christians teach that anyone who opposes Israel is cursed by God, then it's much easier to justify violence against those people whom you say are cursed by God. So if Palestinians oppose Israel's oppressive policies, and then you say, oh, they're opposing Israel, so they're cursed by God. Well, if they're cursed by God, what favor do they deserve in this world? It's a very short step to not only tolerating, but applauding violence against such a community. So here's my question. How can theologies that demean Palestinians be most effectively challenged? Well, I hope this review of these concepts of direct and indirect violence and negative peace and positive peace have been helpful to you. And these help lay the groundwork for our understanding of different kinds of peace that we're seeking as we pursue peace studies. Thank you very much.